Good morning. Welcome back to United TV. Are Manchester United back in the Champions League after results on the weekend? It's looking very close. I think 6 points might be what's required to get the job done, but no doubt we might be talking about this in maybe a game's time if Chelsea lose the next game. So we could be almost in there. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of discussion about is Champions League football. Does Champions League football mean that Michael Carrick it's almost like a done deal? He's going to be the next Manchester United head coach on a permanent basis. This is something which I think a few people have been discussing. We have been looking at alternatives, and I thought today there's a few stories out there, a few different pundits. We've got Rio Ferdinand, we've got other ex Manchester United players, we've got in terms of this, we've got Owen Hargreaves. We've also got a few statements from Carrick, and also look at league position as well. What's happened since Michael Carrick's come in? That part of it's going to be backroom staff, but Michael Carrick's going to take a lot of credit. And does it become a situation where, when I saw the Rio Ferdinand story, Rio Ferdinand's angle is if you think Michael Carrick's not the person for the job full time, and that's perfectly valid if you think that, the question is going to be who's out there that you think Man United could get that would definitely do a better job. There's a few names that people might be putting out there, and it looks like Manchester United are definitely going down the route of maybe trying to speak to Nagelsmann, maybe looking at Areola as another option. I think the Luis Enrique thing's not going to happen. A few other options that were discussed maybe about 2 months ago or maybe longer have actually extended contracts where they are already. So it's going to be one where it's not an easy decision, and you feel like Manchester United need to try and get something decided at some point. That I don't know if we're going to go the whole season, then make the decision, or we're going to see maybe the conversations with Nagelsmann. Manchester United supposed to be either they've gone to Germany or they're flying out to Germany to actually speak to his representative. So it does seem that United are looking at all possible options at the moment. And I think when we had this conversation where we looked at it and said that the story I read maybe 2 days ago was if Michael Carrick gets Champions League football, it's very likely, very likely that he would remain on. And I suppose if you look at the league table, if Manchester United finish in third, then there's a good, strong case to make that results have been good enough. Results have been actually good over a decent amount of time. But again, I think for this one, my view is going to be always that Manchester United should look at what are all the options. At the moment, that Michael Carrick's doing a very good job. The fact we're going to get Champions League football, it seems to be something that maybe in January we thought that was not a possibility. But in terms of like Rio Ferdinand, I'd have the same question as Rio Ferdinand and say, if you think that if there's a manager out there you think that realistically Manchester United can get for a start, wants to join Manchester United, and you think it is almost certain to be an improvement on Michael Carrick, then that's where I said get some names in the comments and let me know what you think. If you think Michael Carrick should definitely be the option now, again, also put that comment out there and say a welcome to the comments, Scott, who says, why do we need to give Carrick a big contract? I don't think we do. I don't think we do need to give Carrick a big contract. And I think when I'm looking at the situation, that clearly the landscape of football is going to be very different next season. If we got Champions League football, that does open up a lot of questions regarding how you're going to rotate the team, how you're going to approach the matches, how is this team going to cope with Champions League football. So I don't know. I don't know what the shortest contract they could give him is, Scott. But I would be looking to say, well, if you give Michael Carrick a very short-term contract, I don't see the problem initially with that. That would be my view. I think it provides a bit of stability from this season into next season with like new signings coming in as well. And then maybe it's one of those things where there's a big incentive for Michael Carrick to try and earn extra years on that contract. And it might be that it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for Michael Carrick trying to look at Champions League football in midweek, Premier League football on the weekend. We've seen Newcastle struggle a lot this season. We've seen other teams find it difficult. One of the names that people do mention, and I've seen this name mentioned a few times, is people talk about Unai Emery, and he's done a good job at Aston Villa of doing exactly that. Champions League football with Aston Villa, a decent campaign there. So European football with Aston Villa, but also Aston Villa in the league. They're level on points with United. Good win for them. They've been inconsistent over the year. I'm not going to say they haven't, but they're still going to be looking to get Champions League football at the expense of Chelsea. And you look at the resources and say Chelsea has spent a huge amount of money. So Aston Villa Emery is probably one of the names in terms of Premier League managers. I think is has done well. If you look at the Premier League table since January the 17th, this is like games under Michael Carrick. We've now got 12 games to discuss. So I know that a lot of people will look at it and say performances. People haven't always been happy with the performances, but the results have been there. And the key was going to be actually I saw that comment. So Gregory saying such as Emery. That's Emery's like one person that people do talk about, and a few people talk about him in terms of he's got the experience. He's got it's a it would be I think if it was Emery, it would be a more difficult conversation. I think if you're comparing Emery to Michael Carrick, because Emery has got a lot of Premier League experience. He's also got European experience, so that's one where I don't know, that would be an interesting one, an interesting one. But I thought what was really clear is if you look at a lot of stories recently, Areola linked pretty strongly to the Newcastle job as well, and Eddie Howe under pressure there. But you look at the league table in the last 12 games, and I think this is why people are looking at Bournemouth's manager Areola because Bournemouth have been fantastic. Like last 12 games, Bournemouth are looking like they could be getting Europa League position. I think they actually might be. They might even be level on points with Chelsea. Well, they're very close. They've been a team that's really shot up the league in the last 12 games as well. And if you look at the league table, the fact that Bournemouth have picked up more points than Arsenal and Man City is extremely impressive. Given they lost to Menu in January. Don't forget the January transfer window. Bournemouth lost their best football player. They didn't replace him with someone that could do what Menu did. So I think Bournemouth and Areola unbelievable season, and that's why he's linked. That's why he's discussed. I'm not sure if Manchester United are looking at Areola as an option, but it's certainly one that you have to look at it and say in recent games, it's been a form team. They've been impressive. They've got some good players. And when we're looking at Bournemouth as well, in the transfer window, there's a few players at Bournemouth linked to Manchester United. So it's not just the manager. And it does seem to be that next season, Bournemouth will probably again sell some of the better players. Areola said he's leaving, which opens up the conversation that he's available, that he's going to be leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season. This is one that is an interesting point, isn't it? It is an interesting point. So if Rio said it was this morning, I think with I think with what Rio Ferdinand's saying is that what options are out there that are better. If you're looking at Bournemouth at the moment, like Ariola's done a great job. Unai Emery, I think, has done a very good job as well with Aston Villa. They look like they're going to keep their Champions League status. They look like they're going to also be successfully competing in Europe. I think those are probably the two names in the Premier League that I look at and think actually they're quite tempting options. The question is going to be if you want to keep Carrick, then right, can you keep Carrick with a 1 year extension? That you could look at that. So Cody says give Carrick a 2 year deal with a break clause if certain metrics are not met. Then I'm guessing with this one, United are looking at the conversation maybe a month ago was going to be, will we get Champions League football? The difference between finishing where we did last season and getting Champions League football, it's going to open up a lot more money. One of the things that people are thinking about is regarding this and regarding money coming into the club. If Manchester United go down the route of trying to get a Nagelsmann, trying to get a different manager in that, right, they're not going to get Luis Enrique, but if you go down that route of trying to get a different head coach in, do Manchester United actually have a bit more money this summer to try and like it wouldn't be as bad as it would have been maybe a year ago. I think a year ago you weren't going to be able to get as many players into the squad. This season you should be able to. So it should be a situation where you should be able to get a decent amount of deals done. There's going to be a lot of players leaving the club. It might be that Michael Carrick would benefit. If he stays on as head coach, there's no doubt we're going to improve midfield. We're going to improve the players we've got, but also it's going to be more. It's going to be a more difficult job. I don't think anyone's thinking it's not going to be a more difficult job. Owen Hargreaves had his say and said since he took over, United have been the best team in the Premier League. I think if you're looking at it and just to put the results into focus, I know a lot of people have. There's been disappointing results. There's been not great performances. The Leeds one was a particularly bad one. But then during this time, we have seen victories over Arsenal, victories over Manchester City, and Yeah, Bournemouth have been the best, say the second best team, and we did draw with Bournemouth. A bit unlucky, I think, in that game with some decisions, but uh, clearly you could see that also West Ham, I think, have improved massively as well. We had a difficult game with them, and we beat Everton. So we've actually during these 12 games we've played all those teams. We've played the teams that have finished like the form teams between second and sixth. So no, it's not the worst situation. I feel that if Manchester United did stick with Carrick, I think one of the comparisons I've seen is people are comparing him to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't think I don't think it's going to be exactly the same. We're probably seeing the same comparisons with like Ollie. He's an ex-player. He does get on quite well with the players at the club, but you also have to look at there is a different coaching structure behind him. That if Michael Carrick was to stay on, we could look at the backroom staff and go, actually, we could maybe change some of the coaches, Holland or other coaches that have had an impact this season. Maybe we look at different coaches around Michael Carrick because the role that Carrick's got, he's going to be more of a coaching role. Manchester United are going to be deciding which players they sign. But in terms of this situation, the difference is going to be, I suppose, if you're looking at one of the things that United are looking at trying to do is a lot of players coming through the academy, a lot of younger players were signing Aiden Heaven, Yoro example, and so the relationship between Carrick and some of those players coming through does seem to be pretty good, which is a positive. Michael Carrick talking about Kobe Mainu, saying he thought this was the best that Kobe Mainu's played versus Chelsea and the best since he's been here. And you could probably say that that's one of the differences we've seen with there's some managers will give players opportunities that maybe other managers are not. Ruben Amorim gave Almajalo lots of opportunities that Eric Ten Hag didn't give, for example. So I think things have gradually been improving. And I thought that the Kobe Mainoo situation, he'll be staying at the club, I'm sure. And I think the Aiden Heaven situation as well, he's another player that's developing quite nicely. And I think this is something that you've got to give the coaching staff a bit of credit. I think Dorgu has improved over the time. Hopefully he's back quite soon as well. So there's some positives behind it. I think when you're looking at some of the managers that might come in that are big names, you might be seeing like people talking about what transfers are going to come in as well. Just saw this. Luis Enrique, I think, is the he's the one that people look at as being, could you tempt him to Man United? I'd be absolutely amazed if he doesn't sign a contract at PSG. Absolutely amazed. I'm not going to say that, you never know what's going to happen in football, but Luis Enrique, surely for Luis Enrique, you sign a short-term contract with Paris Saint-Germain, win as much as you can. The team's there, isn't it? Paris Saint-Germain have the team to win trophies, keep winning trophies while that team's together, I would say, and then maybe look at moving on. Then that he could do multiple Champions Leagues with Paris Saint Germain team, and I think he should do that. Then move on, but who knows? I'd be unbelievably surprised if Man United got him. I think it's one way that it's not going to happen, is it? Jim says Ariola doing better than Carrick because Carrick was already in the Champions League. I mean, what Champions League positions? I think if you look at results, then over the whole season, Ariola's been in charge of Bournemouth the whole season, and I think if you look at the last 12 games, like I can only compare Carrick when Carrick took over, and I guess the difference is going to be, you could probably make the point that Michael Carrick has more resources than Ariola does in terms of his team. But Ariola had the benefit of at least starting the season with his team, pre-season, organising things from day one. But he has been hampered. Like my point is going to still stand that since January the 17th, Ariola's been doing this without Semenyo. Like with Semenyo leaving, he was their leading goal scorer. He's the reason why they picked up a lot of points and wins at the start of the season. So I think given these two comparisons, you'd say that they've both been the best two managers since January. They've both got the best track record. I can't remember if Bournemouth have beaten. Actually, did Bournemouth beat Arsenal recently? Then both these teams have beaten Arsenal, if that's the case. I think they have beaten Arsenal recently. And Ariola's record has been very good against top teams. The difficulty is going to be is like, does Ariola see Man United as a massive step up? Will he go there? Um, I think Ariola is achievable, definitely. I think Newcastle fans are actually 50-50 on whether Ariola is an upgrade on Eddie Howe. I think he is an upgrade. I think the football's more exciting. And I think Newcastle have got some very good players as well. I think Areola would be a good acquisition for Newcastle. They need to get someone that's going to get them over the line, get them consistently higher up. Like they at the moment, they're struggling a little bit this season with multiple competitions. That's going to be a challenge for Areola as well. If Areola joins Manchester United or joins, say not maybe not Newcastle next season, but if you join a team that's going to be fighting in European competition and the Premier League, that's kind of the difficulty they got. So it's going to be whoever we get, you need to expand the squad. So um, Cody's disagreeing, say there's no pressure on Areola. I suppose with this one that Areola's kind of in the spotlight recently because of the performances from Bournemouth. You could probably say that if we went back to near the start of the season, Oliver Glasner was getting lots of press coverage linking into the Manchester United job, and Oliver Glasner had also done very well at the start of the season with Crystal Palace. That Crystal Palace they've lost. They're losing their top players as well, so it's a difficult situation. But there is a difference in pressure. I suppose you could argue that the difference would be that Michael Carrick is not permanent manager at the moment. Is not permanent head coach. So on the face of it, you'd look at it and say, Michael Carrick, there is pressure at Manchester United. There's always going to be pressure, and maybe with this one, that the expectation with United squad, like things were actually getting a bit better. We were about sixth position in the league when he took over, so we have improved by a few positions. But I think what we're seeing is like we're just picking up more points. We've got more wins. Okay, some of the performances have been a bit scrappy, but it's probably a league position a lot of people didn't think was achievable at the start of the season. And that's probably key for me that if we get Champions League football, it I don't think it guarantees Michael Carrick the job, but it does mean that he should be in under consideration. Like it shouldn't be like there is some obvious candidates out there, but I think what you need to look at is what's the medium plan regarding Manchester United? Is it something that Michael Carrick could have maybe another year, maybe another couple of years? Or if next season Michael Carrick's in charge, what would be the benchmark? What would be the metric to judge success? For example, people have been discussing if Michael Carrick's in charge next season, Manchester United, if they got Champions League football, what's acceptable in terms of like what would be the because clearly when we're looking at about 12 games and you add the rest of the season onto that, you've got just under half a season. Getting Champions League football would seem like enough for a lot of people to go, right, okay, that's a good job done. Michael Carrick has done well. If you then go to a whole Premier League season, next season, you've got pre-season there, we've got new transfers coming in, is the expectation going to be Manchester United finish like Champions League football again? We've got to do better in domestic cups. There's an expectation that you've got to at least get through the group stage in the Champions League. Like what would be acceptable? It was people are going to have a different view. It's going to be yeah. No one will agree on this. I think last night when we discussed this at length towards the end of the stream, there was a few suggestions that if Michael Carrick got the job next season, got Champions League football and did like knockout stage of the Champions League, better in domestic cups. Maybe that's going to be enough for next season. But nobody's thinking we're going to challenge them for the league and being in the Champions League. But it's a stepping stone. And if Manchester United can make sure they qualify for the Champions League every single season, this will mean that when it comes to the transfer windows, we can keep improving, and that's kind of a gradual thing. Morning, Stephanie. Morning. I'm trying to bring back 9 a.m. streams. I'm kind of guessing that maybe this won't be the most popular because no one will be expecting the live stream this time of the day. But there will be obviously a live at 1 p.m. as well, standard time. But this is like a an extra stream. We're going to try and start doing morning streams as more news comes out. So anyone that's also watching, the if you click on the socials, you can make sure that you can get involved with the chat as well and get involved in like stories that have been discussed. I think this one is it a done deal now? Can we start celebrating Champions League football? I feel like we're so close. And I just look at the fixtures, and my reaction was like Manchester United need 6 points, I believe. And I was just thinking, I'll just let Chelsea lose like the next game. Then Man United will need 3 points. We'll get a win. I'm trying to think who we got next. We got Brentford next, like a Brentford win and Chelsea losing, that could be it. It could be a done deal. And I think it's like so close, isn't it? That it's in our hands, which is perfect. But I don't think Chelsea are going to be winning all their games. I don't think it's a problem at all. I think you're looking at this and thinking that the fact Aston Villa won, I think means that Chelsea are like one bad performance now away from just like that's it for them. No Champions League football. Rafinha will be gone, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I kind of hope they keep him, but no, the way Chelsea have folded has been surprising. I think the Maresca sacking must be looking like a bit of a mistake to Chelsea, but it's good to see that they've fallen apart. And to us, this is something that when you look at it, Michael Carrick's games, and people will talk about the scrappy win against Everton, the very late win against Fulham. Michael Carrick's been quite bold. He's like, we played quite attacking football towards the end of matches. We rode our luck a lot against Chelsea. I'm not going to say we didn't. We rode our luck against Chelsea, but we put in very good performances against Manchester City, good performance against Arsenal. So I think overall, we've no we've still been more consistent than most of those teams over the last 12 games, which is that's all it took. All it took to try and get Champions League football was just a little bit more consistency, a bit more consistency for a few games, and it was key. I think we're playing Liverpool as well, and so I don't want to. Maybe we could get points against Liverpool to secure Champions League, so that would be an added bonus and a big incentive in that match as well. So that could be one to look out for as well. So you think Ariola wins his first two games? Uh, I think it's different. I think it's very different with this situation. Stephanie says, I want third spot, 70 points, so 4 wins out of 5 needed. That's a big ask. I suppose when you look at the fixtures, we've got some tricky games coming up. A Liverpool win, if we do the double over Liverpool, then that would be fantastic. That would be really good. If we beat Liverpool then with two different managers, wouldn't we? So that would be pretty good. I think that also that would represent Manchester United getting a certain amount of points as well, and it's kind of a building block, isn't it? Manchester United also scoring a lot more goals, so there's a few things moving in the right direction. Finishing third after finishing 15th would at least this would be something that if you're a football player looking at where you're going to play your football, and you look at Manchester United finishing 15th, obviously that's a complete disaster. And you look at Spurs in the same sort of situation. You fast forward 1 year. Manchester United bought better players than Spurs. We've made better decisions regarding when we replaced and when we got Carrick in, and we're seeing. I think Spurs have actually made a good appointment now in terms of who's their manager, but it might be too late. But and now, if you're looking at this, Man United players looking at Manchester United must be looking at it in a different light and thinking, yeah, there's definitely some positives there. I think with this one, if Man United have got, say, 5 games left to go, there's players like Aiden Heaven that are getting opportunities because of injuries, because of suspensions. There's quite a lot to play for individual players at United. That we know there's going to be players coming in, and I think what we're seeing is Kobe Mainu putting in very good performance. Seeing Aiden Heaven play extremely well, and there's no doubt that with Aiden Heaven, that he's genuinely been behind Maguire, De Ligt, Lissandro Martinez, Yoro. So Aiden Heaven has been like near the bottom in terms of like which centre backs are getting games for United. I think Aiden Heaven is taking his opportunity and he's pushing himself up the list as well. So if I'm looking at Manchester United formations and teams next season, I think Aiden Heaven's got a very good shout to be alongside a player like Maguire, where you've got someone that's experienced that can help him out a bit. But I think he should be getting way more games. Like so, a lot. There's a few players that have got a lot to play for. I think also Diallo, he needs to start getting more goal contributions and assists. I think there's going to be this competition for places, even like you can see Manu, that we will sign some very good midfielders. There won't be any guarantees that you're going to be starting every single match, unless well, if you're Bruno Fernandes, you will probably be starting every single match, but there will be a bit more of a fight for competition and places, particularly in like midfield, and I'm hoping kind of defence as well. Welcome Cake. So yeah, you're comparing it to Ollie as well. I don't know. I think they're different as well. They're definitely different. But I saw I think a couple of people were discussing this, and that's the argument I suppose is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was interim manager, did very well, took over, things started dropping off a little bit. you'd have to be realistic and say that under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, when you had Greenwood, Rashford, Anthony Martial, you got Paul Pogba, you got Matic, you got Bruno Fernandes at his peak possibly, and you got quite a solid defence behind him. David De Gea playing well. Man United, they had a bit of one or two dodgy transfer windows, and things started falling down a bit. I would say this situation that if you looked at the middle ground where I'm not going to say like give Michael Carrick a 5-year contract, but if you look at it and say, let's see what Michael Carrick does next season. And if it goes well, then there's no problem. If it doesn't go well, then the main thing is that the transfer window needs to be good. And it does seem to be that we're kind of getting back there. We've got a good goalkeeper. We've got goal scorers in our team. We don't have the midfield of Matic, Pogba, Bruno Fernandes was very good at the time. We definitely got second in the Premier League. We won the Europa League, and we need to get somewhere close to that. So I think if we can sign a couple of players that are that level and midfield is sorted out a little bit, it's going to be an interesting situation. We could be getting close to the situation where when Stephanie's saying there's a few players that could force their way into the squad that were signed a while ago. If you think about the younger players, Chio, you think about Leon, you think about Kone in the academy, JJ Gabriel. There's a few players coming through that I think will really need. There's going to be the right sort of coach, the right sort of person in charge to bring these players through. I no, I look at this and think I no, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a good relationship with players. We're seeing that if you look at things that's in the press regarding, say, Mainu and Carrick, for example, and I think things he said about JJ Gabriel as well. I think there's positives about having this kind of smooth transition. The work with Aiden Heaven, I think, is definitely a lot of positives as well. So it's going to be tricky. I think if you want a head coach to come in that wants to have the sorts like Luis Enrique would be, for me, not necessarily the best. Well, I think for Luis Enrique, he would be a bit frustrated that Man United is a couple of years away from being a bit more competitive. And I think that if it'd be very difficult for him to jump from Paris Saint-Germain, where you're winning the Champions League, you've got a fantastic team, to essentially a rebuild. Like we are still in a rebuild, and it's a tricky one. Welcome to you, Niall. Good to see you, Niall. There was a couple of legends on the calling show last night. Niall, I don't know if you've watched it. There was like a bit of an angry call from an Arsenal fan. I might have to edit it a little bit and remove some of that language, but there's a good conversation about transfers. But I think there's going to be this is another issue to sort out, isn't it? It's not the worst issue because we're looking at trying to find out you know, what's Man United's decision. And Gregory says Carrick's a placeholder until someone better comes along. So well, I think with Luis Enrique, the difficulty with Luis Enrique is Luis Enrique's at a very successful club at the moment. They've got a very good team, and the problem with, like, say, trying to get Luis Enrique is you can't. Manchester United can offer Luis Enrique a huge amount of money, but he's going to be offered a huge amount of money from Paris Saint-Germain. So it won't be about money with like that. Like Luis Enrique can get whatever money he wants. It might be that if you're Luis Enrique, why not win a couple more trophies with Paris Saint-Germain, then go to Manchester United? So it feels a little bit like Manchester United. The kind of expectation is very similar to Newcastle a few years ago. I think a lot of people thought Eddie Howe was a placeholder at Newcastle and they were going to instantly replace him with a new manager. That didn't happen. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that Eddie Howe wouldn't be at Newcastle as long. And I also thought they were going to sign a lot more players quicker than they have and be able to build up the squad quicker, but that's not the case. But he's actually been there quite a while now. And I think Newcastle fans are kind of 50-50 on Eddie Howe. So he might be gone, but he might stay. I think it's a tricky one. But no, the expectation initially was that Carrick was a placeholder. The difficulty is going to be then with Michael Carrick. I did say this. Like, what are the best options? Like, if you say that Carrick's only playing counter-attack football because these players can't play any other way, then if the players can't play any other way, like if you genuinely believe the players can't play any other way, then there's no point in playing in any other way, is there? Then I don't know. I think that to say it's not sustainable, I think it's difficult. But in 12 games, which is almost like you're looking at over a third of the season, in 12 games, it has been somewhat sustainable because Man United have the best record in the Premier League. So I don't think that results wise, I can't say it's not sustainable. You could argue that Arteta's tactics at Arsenal with heavy reliance on set piece goals is not sustainable because they're actually starting to uh, drop the lead. It looks like Man City might be maybe the favourites at the moment now. But over the last 12 games, Man City and Arsenal have pretty much picked up the same points. So whether they bottled it or not, we've seen Manchester City have also been a bit inconsistent, but they do seem to be a team that actually gets it together towards the end of the season. But I think with this one that Michael Carrick's job is essentially to play the best sort of football that gets results, and whether it's a counter-attacking style or whether it's like in games where Manchester United do have more possession. I think that the key is that you've got to try and get the results to start with. Once you've got Champions League football, I think you can start bringing in more options, more players. And with Michael Carrick, the difficulty to say is going to be if United brought in more players and they had more options, and you had a look at what's the best option out there, then then maybe you got more decisions then. But I think there's a bit of a lack of flexibility. You're complaining that I'm not really sure this. You're complaining that you don't switch to a back three. Why would you want to switch to a back three? And not like what's the problem regarding that one? So the question is, if we go with Carrick and it goes wrong, do you think we get a better crop of managers next season? It's it is difficult, isn't it? Because it's sometimes difficult to predict with this. Like if you're looking at the situation, then Manchester United have said this as well. That I think Jim Radcliffe came out and said they see it more important to get transfers correct than the head coach correct. Which I don't particularly disagree with. I think you need to look at the whole thing and you need to try and get the best head coach, try and get the best possible. Like you have to look at it and say whatever aspect of Manchester United, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's the players, whether it's the medical staff, whether it's anyone associated, scouts, etc., anything associated with the club, you always want to try and raise the standards, get the best possible at the club. That's what you need. You need the best of everything if you can. And so, like, no, I'm not going to sit here and say Michael Carrick's the best manager in world football, but the situation is going to be that maybe United are thinking that at the moment, like for another year, they might go with down that option. It is a tricky one. But it's if it goes wrong, do you get a better option? Then I suppose it depends on if Manchester United really wanted to get someone like Emery, who is like fairly high up on the list of people that have been mentioned by other people in the comments in other channels as well, saying Emery's an option. That's kind of you have to probably get him in the summer. I don't think you're going to be getting him without massive expense mid-season, and it's going to be one where it is obviously. It feels like for me this is I think it's quite an important decision because you don't want to have a situation in the summer where you back Michael Carrick, you have meetings, discussions, plans for the season, and then look at bringing in someone mid-season. It's just not going to be ideal, and if you give Carrick the role of head coach, you'd have to be looking at possibly the support staff behind him, possibly looking at some of the coaches that work with Carrick, and maybe getting a few more ideas in there or a slightly different strategy. It's no different, I think, no different in my mind from Alex Ferguson getting in Carlos Queiroz to get a different voice, different tactical approach when we're trying to improve results in European football, which we were doing towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s. I think there's definitely things always evolve in football. I think sometimes you've got to look at some of the approaches Manchester United got. Okay, it worked this season, but you've got to be looking at that. Welcome to the chat, Bruno. And welcome back, Bruno. We did see Bruno after the Chelsea game and say Arteta's a student of Pep. Yeah, his best chance to win something is going full Louis van Gaal, saying his system sacred. Nobody's above the system, which is very anti-Pep. Yeah, the Arteta has got very, very. If we're looking at teams, Arteta is driving Arsenal fans crazy with his tactics and his approach. And I think a lot of people looking at Arsenal from outside were saying, yeah, maybe the situation at Arsenal is they're going to tolerate it because they might win the league. If they do this kind of this, it's difficult to watch, isn't it? With Arsenal, sometimes their approach to games it's been working, but now it's if it doesn't work, it's going to be quite difficult because I think Arsenal's play from goals from open play has dropped off massively, and they were lucky not to get a red card yesterday as well. So it could be even worse for them. And if they don't win the league title this season, it's going to feel like no, with Man City improving, I'd say that with United have got to try and overtake Arsenal. That's going to be the first kind of thing we need to try and do. And maybe there may be some of the Arsenal players that have been there a while. 5 years without a trophy, it's quite a long time for a team that's that high in the Premier League. It's kind of difficult for Arsenal. That I'm hoping the play some of the better players leave, and then yeah, we can benefit from that. So if you go with Areola, it'll go wrong. So you're saying not if. Okay. I think if you go with Areola, then it's going to be difficult one to call. I think it's going to be, but Emery would seem more stable, and the difficulty is going to be about. I think when we looked at before Eric Ten Hag got no, when Eric Ten Hag was under pressure, and Manchester United were looking at Ruben Amorim, they looked at Tuchel, and Tuchel was, I need more control, and he didn't get the control he wanted, and decided that that wasn't the option for him. If Emery wants more control, that might be a problem. That I think that's probably the sticking point at the moment. That Michael Carrick doesn't really have much control, doesn't really have loads to say. I'm not sure how much input he would get in transfers, although he might be in the conversation, but I don't think he's going to be the sort of power that I think the power stopped when Eric Ten Hag left the club for head coach or manager at Manchester United. I don't think Ruben Amorim had a lot of say over players. There was clearly stories that he wanted more experienced players. I'd imagine with Michael Carrick, there'd be players he would see as good options to get in. And I'm sure if Manchester United got Nagelsmann or if Manchester United got Emery, they would have input regarding what players they'd like, but they wouldn't have the final say. I don't think they'd be able to veto players either. That's going to come from Lavelle, the scouts, and people above him. But if you look at a good transfer window, like I know you want control. If the transfer window is very good, then that could be a factor in like getting some. Like I know that I think Manchester United and other teams are moving a little bit further away from like managers having the sort of say they used to, and you have to get somebody that can work with Vavell. So if Emery has a good relationship with the sporting director at Manchester United, it would be absolutely fine. At the moment, Michael Carrick, people are saying that he's going to have to just agree with things, but no, he's there on a temporary basis, so there's not really much he can do. Arteta ball is unwatchable, really unwatchable. Saying you're talking about playing a low block. I would make this point that if you're looking at Premier League teams and teams across Europe, then lots of teams struggle against the low block. That's why low block is a go-to tactic for a lot of teams that don't have great players. That it's difficult to break down a low block. That's why teams use a low block. And I don't think Manchester United are necessarily worse than other teams at breaking down a low block. And if you consider that the teams we're playing against we played against a decent amount of teams in the last 12 games, and we've seen Man City struggle against certain teams. We've seen Arsenal struggle against teams near the bottom of the league. Manchester United also, Liverpool also, uh, Chelsea. I don't think there's a team in the top five in the Premier League that hasn't struggled against the low block this season at times. It's it's just difficult. Like that's why people use a low block. It kind of neutralizes it removes the space. It makes it very difficult to play, and it's with physical league like the Premier League, it's difficult. That's why people go for it. Arteta to Barca would be interesting. I would say, yeah, it's almost like if you go to Barcelona, you'd have a lot. You'd have. I think I would argue that Arsenal have got players that are capable of playing better football than they do. And Manchester United have got players that are capable of playing decent football. But saying Arteta to Barca would be, if Arteta goes to Barcelona and if Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City, and if you're looking at a situation where potentially Liverpool move their manager on, then there could be a few clubs looking at big head coaches in the near future. And if Manchester United are looking at it, this feels like it could be the time that when we used to look at the Premier League and say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going against Klopp at Liverpool, who was doing really well. He had Pep Guardiola at Man City doing amazingly at that time. And this situation is going to disappear very quickly. We've had some very good head coaches and managers in the Premier League. Is the standard going to drop a little bit? Where you look at, okay, would Emery be a good option? He's got the experience, but Emery would be against Arteta and against Slot's replacement and against like Slot's nowhere near as good as Klopp was over long time. It could be a factor that getting a good head coach now could benefit Manchester United in 2 years' time when Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal all have worse coaches. That's kind of my hope. That and is Carrick the person to kind of step up and be that? No, there just is not enough information out there to say that he's done well with what he's been asked to do so far. I don't think Michael Carrick could have done particularly loads more. He's picked up 5 more points than Arsenal in 12 games. I don't think the expectation would have been to like win every single game. The game against Chelsea was a bit fortunate, but we only had Aiden Heaven. Only we had one 19-year-old as a centre back at the club. So the fact we kind of hit the wall completely with like defensive options, like one centre back. You have all these like I know it's the suspensions for annoying reasons, but that was one where the game against Chelsea is all about the result. The result was everything in that game. I think the style of play can come, but you've got to look at the that Man United that if we played a great style of play and missed out on Champions League football, it would be a bit of a disaster. If we kind of get over the line regarding like however we do it, if we have a poor performance and scrape a 1-0 against Brentford, it'll be almost job done. It'll be almost like Champions League football. We kind of put the second foot in there. Like I'm sure Chelsea won't be winning too many games at the end of the season, and it wouldn't be the big issue. You're saying sell. You want to sell two of Man United's better performing players. You want to sell Bruno and sell Kobe Mainoo. Then I don't see why you want to sell Kobe Mainoo. I don't see the point of selling him. Like Kobe Mainoo's just turned 21. He's only getting better. Put in one of his best performances on the weekend. Can you imagine if Kobe Mainoo wasn't available and we played Ugarte? And if you sell Bruno Fernandes, who are you selling Bruno Fernandes to? And how much are we going to get? Like realistically, I don't think we're going to be getting loads of money for someone over 30. But also, I when you look at this like when you look at this the situation regarding Bruno and Kobe Mainoo, Michael Carrick will have zero say in selling players. Like there is no way that any manager like we saw Ruben Amorim not playing Kobe Mainoo, and effectively the ownership was starting to get concerned. Like, why is this player not in the team? So I don't think there's any. Like, I don't think Michael Carrick's going to be deciding player sales. So if you think Michael Carrick is going to be deciding how the squad's shaped, that's not his job. That's going to be Vivell. It's going to be Wilcox. It's going to be Barada. I think the job of Vivell is player procurement, isn't it? He's scout. He's got the scouting network. They're looking at identifying players to come in for Manchester United. They're going to be making the overall decisions. Michael Carrick's just there to coach the players and get the best performance out of the team. He is not. He's not going to be deciding which players stay. And Bruno Fernandes and Kobe Mainoo are selected every single time. So why would he not take them? Bruno Fernandes has played almost every single game for Manchester United for 5 years under every single manager and interim manager. Like the club are not going to be uh, they're not going to be selling him. Every single manager they've got rates him. I say, yeah, Bruno's going nowhere. He's going to be. Bruno Fernandes has got 18 assists so far in the Premier League. I know I saw this clip from Ricky on the United stand who doesn't rate Bruno, and his reaction on the game after the game against Chelsea was he said Bruno man of the match performance, unbelievable, great assist, you know, drove into space, cut back, nice and great finish by Cunha. But Bruno Fernandes was a key player against Chelsea. We didn't have much, we didn't have a lot, and he provided that spark to get the win. So I think it's generally that, but with Bruno Fernandes, he's going to be part of the team next season, and I don't know. There's no way Manchester United are going to want to sell Bruno Fernandes because the chance creation he's got now. Now the chances are coming to Cunha and Buemo Sesko. We're seeing more goals scored, aren't we? We're seeing better finishing, and Bruno Fernandes 18 assists. It's a Manchester United Premier League record. So if you look at that, if you look at building behind him with, if you could get a dream example would be if you can get Anderson, who's really good defensively, really good legs in midfield, and you look at maybe him and Mainu playing, or you look at maybe having like another top midfielder in the club. You could look at Man United's midfield. If Man United's midfield starts playing at high level, and we did do that against Manchester City, we did start knocking the ball around and being very difficult to play against. Then Bruno Fernandes has kind of got not a free reign, but he's got a lot more space to operate in. He can get further forward, and that's kind of key. Our attack is actually functioning quite well. Our goal difference is moving in the right direction. We've scored already. We've scored, I think, quite a decent amount of goals than we did last season, and we're going to get more. I can't remember the last time we did no, we're not having games where we can't score. We had one shot against Chelsea that we on target, and that was enough to win the game. We were kind of lucky, but we got some finishing there that is better as well. Welcome, Siki, to the chat. Good to see you. I think it's been a while since we've got the new channel going, but great to see you in the chat. So Carrick Gamble taking the job. His plan was to finish the league, not to take up the job. I don't think yeah, I don't know what people's expectation was when he first took on the job. I think a lot of people looked at Michael Carrick as a yeah, I don't know. I suppose a lot of people at the time thought it might be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Carrick. I think at the time people wanted people wanted to a complete change. I think, and that's why Carrick seemed like a decent option. But no, if we had this conversation in January and said like, "What's the expectations?" I think if we got Champions League football, I think most people would have been very satisfied. And I think that's kind of it. The goalposts are moving a little bit now, and I think if you're looking at it, I can see why people are thinking this and saying, say, Kate wants a brand new midfield. Then thing is though, we need to add to these players. We need more midfield options. Like we need more midfield options, and the difficulty is going to be that if you sell Bruno Fernandes and you sell Kobe Mainoo, you've literally got no midfield. You've just got Agate left at the club, and people think he's going to go. So if you do that, you're honestly going to have to then buy what you're going to buy 4 to 5 midfield players. Like if you're looking at the club at the moment, you've got Bruno Fernandes and you've got Kobe. That's two. We're already talking about having to buy three. There is no way Man United would buy 5 midfielders in one window. Like 5 midfielders. I think Bruno Fernandes is there at the moment, and I think Kobe Mainoo is not going to be sold. But we're going to add to this. But I don't know why you want us to sell Bruno. That's at the moment that if you want to replace Bruno, who do you bring in? Like Arsenal have Odegaard, who racks up almost no assists in comparison, does but almost no goal scoring, doesn't carry a goal threat. Bruno Fernandes can strike the ball very well. We've seen like no, he Bruno Fernandes can put the sort of crosses in where Casemiro can head the ball in, or he can put the crosses in from Maguire to score. You've seen like assists to like Sesko, Dorgu, and Buemo, Cunha. Like he's picking out players, and I don't know if we can find someone that can then come in and do that. It feels like we need to fix one thing at a time. If we fix our midfield next season and we still got the attacking threat, the attack's working quite well. We kind of need we'll get more control with better midfielders. That will just happen. Also, it will mean that we can rotate and not drop off so much. So West Ham fifth. Yeah, I said, didn't I? I said West Ham are going to be. West Ham started picking up points like since January, and they've been a form team. That's why when we got a point, you look at West Ham and go, yeah, West Ham are a difficult team. So you're going to go out and win and say Mainu is baby Pogba. People are saying like Makaleli, and people are looking at it and saying that no, you notice him when he's not playing. It's maybe with this one that the only kind of I don't want to be too critical of players that have come in and we've done very well since he's come in. I would kind of agree that you don't get the range of passing. You could probably say that with Mainu as well, he's not really. Stephanie put a brilliant comment on a stream yesterday or a video that like a that had just finished, saying that if Mainu's not getting many chances in terms of playing more attacking, and that could be because of the nature of the players we've got in our team. But when Mainu was getting a bit further forward, say a year ago, Mainu's got a bit of a threat. Could no potentially could be an okay finisher. We just don't see him getting many shots. But I think sometimes you look at it and go, he doesn't have the passing range of someone like Acuna and particularly Bruno Fernandes. At that point, he doesn't really have the passing. It might be something to work on. That I think you work on aspects of your game. Maybe the longer range passing is something that Mainu could bring in, and that would be that would be something where that he can develop as a player. But I think otherwise, when you're looking at trying to get some sort of control, you're looking at trying to keep things ticking over in midfield. I think he's good. I think he's is good. I think there's always a danger to overhype players as well. So Bruno's only good when he's got grass in front of him, but that's probably going to be that you're going to have to play in a way which gets the best out of Bruno. I think. I think sometimes I look at it and think that I think when people talk about controlling games, it's one thing, and I think we've seen Arsenal control a lot of games, and we've seen Arsenal dominate possession. I think sometimes you look at it and go, like controlling games is obviously something we want to see. I think Bruno's got the skill set to unlock defenses with passing that we don't have in don't see that in other teams. So it is very difficult. So Gregory would like Man United to buy four midfielders. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. Like, would you take four midfielders if we get nothing in defence? And we have we. I would love Man United to actually make a statement signing early on, just get a player done. So Mainoo could ultimately move further forward when Bruno eventually leaves. I mean, that's probably the question, isn't it? That with Mainoo, if you think about if you think about Manchester United's transfer signings for a second, then you look at some of the options they've got out there. They probably need to try and they need to strengthen defence, 100%, 100%. And I think that's why, if, like, the attack's quite functional at the moment. Like the attack's working well. United are scoring a lot more goals than they have done in recent seasons. That's why I'm looking at it. We're like saying that if you get stability by maybe replacing like a Casemiro or a Garte with younger legs, and you look at having more midfield options, you're going to have a bit of competition for places. At the moment, there is no competition for places in Manchester United's midfield. Bruno Fernandes has no competition. Kobe Mainoo and Casemiro have no competition. If you did get some midfield signings in, like Angela Stiller, or you get Alex Scott, or you get, say, anyone from Anderson, Tonali, Wharton, all these options people talk about, if you get some competition in, it's going to push the levels up, isn't it? That Kobe Mainoo at the moment effectively walks into the team because no one's going to look at Agate and go, right, Agate can do that job. And that's a bit of a worry. It's good that Casemiro and Komenu between them like have been available for most games, but we have to really look at it and go like long term, it's not great. So if you look at we could like these are three options I've talked about. Good Premier League options. I think Senesi is like available free, isn't he? Van Heck, you're looking at 35 million. Murillo would be very expensive. Maybe the exciting name on that list, but he would be very expensive. Forest fans I talked to, rate Murillo up there with Anderson as being like a key player this season. He's going to be expensive, really. Um, a big up to you, Overhead Kick TV. I think I recognise the name. I'm not sure if I recognise the name in the comments on this channel, but I recognise that name. Obviously, you know Stephanie, so obviously a good account. Saying saying you agree Pogba brought us no pain. Mourinho was the main reason in regard to that situation. Oh yeah, Paul Pogba was playing for Manchester United, we're talking about Man United winning the Europa League. Paul Pogba being one of the players of that competition. He was definitely, I think he was definitely a Mourinho player at the time, but also we had Zlatan as well, so different situation. So with Litter and De Ligt been injury prone, Maguire in his final seasons. Yeah, they kind of need like Slotterback's just signed an extension as he about a month ago, so Slotterback's off the table. He's not going to be moving anywhere. I think United need to look at those options that you just put up on the screen. There's a few centre back options, and they're going to be good options. I would say that given like we got a lot to do, I would be looking at it seriously going like next season could be a season where really work on Aiden Heaven, work on like some of the weaknesses he's got. It's I think with Aiden Heaven, it's just experience. It's just experience, and he's going to be a good player. And I think with Yoro, there's a few more question marks. He also yeah, he's got a slight niggling injuries, which frustrate me a bit. But again, work on him with coaches, and you could. He's still got a good skill set. He's still only 20. Still a lot of improvement to be made. I think United need to get someone that's going to be that mid 20s, like mid 20s kind of signing. Do you look at that and think we've almost got? I don't know. It's almost like so frustrating because if the and Martinez were injury free, we'd actually have a really good blend of experience and youth in our defence. And because we've got the issues with like, okay, Martinez and Maguire are suspended, so it's not an injury issue at the moment. So it might be better next season. It looks really bad at the moment, but it's not injury issues. But I think with De Ligt, if Manchester United could get a version of De Ligt that's injury free, or go for an experienced centre back, which say slot back not off the table. Okay, if the extension's got like a maybe a possible release clause, then that's a a good one. I think Van Heck is likely about the same sort of money. So the sort of 35 million price point is, I mean, it could change. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say I know the value of Slotterbeck. I knew that he was going to be signing a new contract. I know that Senesi is on a free, and when you're looking at a few other people that are out there, I would say that Murillo might be too expensive because the feedback I'm getting from Forest content creators is big money if you want to get this guy in. And I think Forest also want to keep their bet. Like, Forest don't need to sell to stay in the Premier League. They potentially could be. Forest could be in Europe, couldn't they? They're still in European competition. I think that's right. So they might be looking at not wanting to lose their best players or just put very high price tags on them. So no, I think it's definitely a good comment, and it's definitely something you got to look at. Is that there's a lack of maybe experienced centre backs at some points during the season. The frustrating thing is that at the moment it's suspensions, but medium term it's been injury issues. Like they've all picked up injuries. Alessandro Martinez and De Ligt in particular. Maguire, no, he does pick up the odd injury as well. So you can't rely just on having one available experienced centre back. I would say that I don't know off the top of my head, but Slotterbeck, Murillo, Van Heck, and you look at I think Senesi, I would probably be looking at injury record as well, thinking, right, just have someone that's reliable, that's going to be in and around the team, the squad for next season, just until that maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, and it could be quite quick. Aiden Heaven could be like making massive strides. I think Aiden Heaven's only played about 20 games. And so to have a player that's only played 20 games put in that sort of performance against Chelsea, I think is really good, like really good. And we're talking about Yoro. Yoro's on almost like three top flight seasons. So I think Aiden Heaven has got loads of potential, but it's always going to be I always say I wouldn't want to see Aiden Heaven playing every single game next season either. I want to see a gradual build up of minutes. Maybe in the Champions League. I'm actually quite excited about the Champions League because the new format does mean we play 8 different teams, potentially loads of different options there. A mix of very big teams that we could get some great experience for some of these younger players, but also also a few teams would be expected to beat in the Champions League, and hopefully, would be some games where Aiden Heaven can start games in the Champions League, Yoro can start games in the Champions League, and I think that the one thing you would need to do is you would need to have some experience alongside. Like Maguire's got the Champions League international experience as well, and I think when you're looking at Van Heck, Senesi, Slotterbeck, then they would also have good experience as well. Big up to you, Rob. Good to see you, and yeah, welcome to the community over at Kick TV. Thanks for tuning in this morning. I don't normally stream 9 a.m., so it's a bit of an unusual streaming time for me. So I thought maybe people wouldn't find the channel as much, but we're going to try and do it regularly. I do kind of sometimes struggle with choosing a topic, and once we get going, it's absolutely fine. Once we get going, the comments flow, and there's like a great community pushing the conversation forward. But it's really difficult to sometimes choose what is the angle because I don't want to kind of like sort of try and say something's going to happen. I don't know it's going to happen, but I think today was a sort of a chat where I thought there's loads of actually there's loads of like the discussions at the moment that are kind of up in the air, and I think when you look at the results are good. But Champions League football is going to be such a bonus. Like there was such a bad way to end the season last season with no Champions League football. It was so deflating, and the biggest concern or biggest disappointment is going to be we've literally gone weeks without games this season. It's been so bizarre. So I will wrap up in a couple of minutes though, because I do need to head off, and then I will be back live 1 p.m. If you see a story that you like, you think would be a good 1 p.m. story, I've got Lou joining us at 1 p.m. So it would be great to have something nice to get into as well. So if you see some stories, I've seen like a couple of people pushing out stories about Camavinga. So I don't know if there's anything to do with that, whether there's any legs in that story at all. But if you see a couple of stories you think are going to be something worth talking about, I think it's probably going to be transfer related because that'll be open up a lot of conversations. So I'll go through a few comments though before we finish this one. If you are new as well, so 519 subscribers. So thank you for getting involved. If we could hit like another one or two, that would be brilliant. Senesi is the experienced option. Van Heck's physical option. Murillo's the athletic option. So pick one. I'm thinking Murillo based on what they're saying, based on the Van Heck's had a great season as well though. So it's difficult, isn't it? Like if you're looking at playing alongside Yoro, I think Van Heck or Murillo would be pretty good. Like you've got physical, athletic players there. I think Van Heck is like one that people look at as being potentially a good fit and not crazy money. So I'm kind of thinking about. I'm considering. Like Van Heck got an assist as well, didn't he, against Spurs? That's another thing I noticed on the weekend. No, so I think they're good options. Like they are good options. So I think Murillo might be too expensive for that one. Senesi, apparently Spurs are trying to get Senesi, but if they're a championship team, that's probably not going to happen, I'd guess. Nice one, Gregory. When do you sleep, Gregory? It's 4 a.m. Big up to you. I appreciate that, Gregory. Legend in the chat. No, we will be back at 1 p.m. And that's what I said. If you got some suggestions that you think this story's been put out there, I will look at a couple of live streams and probably start scheduling it. I'll probably have to schedule it quite soon. So I will be on Lou's channel as well at midday. But that could be one that we're looking at. So I've already sent Spurs to the EF. I'm just saying, if you're Tottenham Hotspur and you're looking at transfer signings, then yeah, it's one thing. This is the funny thing. Like it's one thing when Manchester United finishing 15th, and when you finish 15th and go right, we finished 15th, we can't offer Champions League football. That one thing that hasn't happened in my lifetime is we haven't gone into a transfer window offering Championship football. If Spurs are offering Championship football, that's going to be honestly with the team that Spurs are. Spurs spent big money last season on a lot of expensive players, it would be genuinely interesting from a neutral perspective to see what sort of transfer window do Spurs do if they get relegated. Like if they drop out of Premier League football, will we see Van der Ven, Xavi Simons? Are these players leaving the club straight away? Are we going to see Spurs reshaping the squad massively? Which players were going to join Spurs when they're in the Championship? So I don't know, a lot of questions. Not our problem, but a lot of questions. Because I think when we look at it, if Nottingham Forest drop into the Championship or West Ham, everybody's looking at Fernandez and Jeff at West Ham. Everybody's looking at Murillo and Anderson at Forest as like players that will be sold for big money. But with Spurs, with no Spurs aren't normally relegated, are they? I can't remember the last time. So it's going to be, it would be very difficult. Gravy says, which of those three defensive options you put up? I'll just see if I can find the comments so people know what I'm talking about. Then I think Van Heck might be a good signing with that. With that, I think Van Heck might be the signing that would maybe go well with. But he's got the experience, physical option. I think Maguire brings physicality. That's something you'd have to replace and look at, say, but also a bit of experience and leadership. We need someone that's experienced, don't we? That we signed the younger defenders. We now need to go with someone that is experienced. So maybe Van Hex is going to be a good option. But to be honest, there isn't a bad option on that list, is there? So if it makes me feel a bit relaxed, you throw Slottenberg in there as well. It's another good option, isn't it? Yeah, I will post in a link to Lee's channel in my stream later on today. But as I said, please say, yeah, I did see this morning that were linked to Romero, and I was thinking, I've watched Romero. Yeah, he is like a walking red card, and they're very error prone this season. I don't know. I would be very reluctant based on performances this season. I'd be reluctant to pick any Spurs defender. I know people do like them and there is like positives about these, but I would be looking at other I'd be looking at other players that have been playing better recently. I don't know. They don't seem when things get difficult, some of the Spurs players don't seem up for the fight. They played better on the weekend, but so I think it would be good to dive into Carrick's position. Who are the realistic managerial options? That's a good topic, deep dive. Yes, that's definitely a good one as well. That we will be there is something that as the season ends, I think we'll definitely be doing more on that as well. It might be something that maybe today I look at some transfer stuff because we did a lot of character discussion this morning and then, but that will be something like, thanks for the suggestion. That will be something that we definitely revisit as well, particularly when new stories come out. If we see any stories regarding Nagelsmann, Areola, other credible options, and there's stories that are coming out that are something to discuss, and maybe it's one where a lot of streams, if you're new to the channel, a lot of the streams in the morning and lunchtime will be myself. And then when we come to the evening, there's a panel of guests that are also excellent guests, and we will be discussing. And to be honest, we have a very cordial discussion. We don't agree on a lot of things, but people have different opinions. I think with the Carrick one, everyone's a bit split on like what we kind of want to see. What are the options out there? I want to see if managers come out, if Nagelsmann and Emery, Areola, if they all came out today and said, we want Manchester United's job, we want to be head coach at United next season, then that would be a fantastic discussion with four different managers that are genuine options. I think at the moment, a lot of people look at the options out there and they're gradually being reduced, aren't they? For one reason or another, they're gradually off the table. But I'm really going to have to head off. So I'm gonna have to get some food. I'm gonna have to set up for the 1 p.m. I'm gonna have to do that a bit earlier today because I will be, like I said, not around at midday. I will share some information on my socials. If you want to get involved in the socials, Cody's like being great regarding say sharing a lot of stuff on the Facebook group, but also on Discord, we've got a good community there as well. I did have something running. I think what was the question in the poll this morning? I'll just quickly address that one. So should Carrick get the United job? Yes, 57%, no, 29%, and 14% not sure at the moment. I'm kind of not sure, but I think there's definitely good arguments for yes. But I want to know. I think should Carrick get the United job, I want to know what the genuine options are that want to join Man United, and then I can make a decision. But at the moment, it's just about gathering information, and I think Carrick's doing no, not doing his position any harm at all by picking up wins. And if Champions League football becomes guaranteed, I think suddenly we might start seeing potentially people more interested. But thank you guys. We'll be back at 1 p.m. with another Manchester United news broadcast stream. Get involved then if you're around. And if you know people that enjoy this sort of content, please share the stream around. And we'll catch you then, guys. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.